Hi, this is Miss Anna. Today we're going to make a mason bee house, which you can see down here. There are over 4,000 species of bees native to the United States, meaning that they've always lived here. This gives them an advantage over honeybees who were brought here from Europe. Native bees can easier pollinate native plants that honeybees can't, such as eggplants and tomatoes. First off, I like to lay out my supplies. So what we'll need for this is 7 thick straws, 5 thin straws, our little name paper that also comes with instructions on where we can hang this house, a plastic container, 2 rubber bands, a piece of twine, and we'll also need some plain white liquid glue, a pair of scissors, and a pencil to write our name with. Now we want to prepare the outside of our bee house. Our first step is to write our name down here on this strip, like you can see that I've done. And our next step is to get the twine on there so we are able to hang it. What I've done is I've put the rubber bands on to the twine like this, and then I'm going to take the rubber bands and I hold them open like this, and then place them around the bottle with the twine already tucked under, because I think it's kind of tricky once the rubber band is on the bottle to pick it back up again. So we're going to do the other rubber band. It doesn't very much matter how far apart they are, but we are also going to use these rubber bands to hold on this paper, so we don't want them to be too far on either edge. Now that our twine is through, we're going to take the ends of the twine and tie it into a knot. And I like to double or maybe even triple knot this, because I definitely don't want my bee house to fall down. Make sure we pull it tight, and then one more just because I have the room for it. It doesn't hurt to be extra careful. There we go, that's tied nice and tight. So now we are able to hang our bee house. Next, we want to put our paper under these rubber bands. And a trick I've learned to make it easier to get under these rubber bands is if you take the twine like this, you can pull up on the rubber band and then get a finger under there a little bit easier. Then we just want to place it under there like that. Just that a little bit. And now we want to do the same thing on the other side so the paper is secure. So again, take these 2 pieces of twine and pull up, and then you can hook a finger under there. Whoop, it's a little bit hard. Paper doesn't curve this way normally. Okay, there we go. I'm going to adjust the twine further up. Yay, now everyone knows that this is my bee house. For our next step, we want to start cutting these straws in half, as I've done over here, and that allows them to be short enough to fit into our plastic tube. They don't have to be exactly in half, as you can see on the first one I've made. The ends here are definitely a bit uneven, and I actually prefer it like that. I just think it looks a little bit better. When we're cutting our tubes, remember to be very careful using your scissors. I like to hold the tube closer to the middle, and remember to leave a good amount of space between your finger here and where you're going to place your scissors. And I like to cut further down the scissors, like this. These are paper, so they shouldn't be too hard to cut. Those are all 5 of the thin straws, cut in about halves. And now we want to do it with these thick straws. Before I mentioned native bees, oh, sometimes they're a little bit slippery. Sometimes they get a little bit bent, but that's okay too. You can just kind of squeeze the end like that. You even have to. I actually think it's kind of a cool shape like that. But native bees are different from honeybees because they work alone. Honeybees work in large hives, and they're working in those hives to produce honey. Native bees don't produce honey. Native bees are also a little bit nicer than honeybees. They're a little bit less protective of their space. So they are a great type of bee to make a home for in your yard because they'll be much more accepting of you coming over to watch them. And if they do sting you, it doesn't hurt like when a honeybee can sting you, and it's very unlikely to produce any sort of shock. But if you are allergic to bees, be very, very careful. Now we're going to cut this last one. There we go. Okay, put my scissors away. All of our tubes are cut in close to halves. And now we get to start putting them in our big plastic tube down here. Next, we want to take our glue and squeeze in a good amount into the bottom of our plastic tube. I used this one earlier, so it might take a little bit. There we go. And we do want a good amount to completely coat the bottom because we don't want any of our straws falling out. And another thing you can do is you can take a straw and kind of smear the glue around the bottom so you can be sure that it's coating every little bit and every straw has a good amount to grab onto. I'm gonna put that straw there, and I'm going to put just a bit more glue in. There we go. Once again, I'm gonna spread it around. We want to have a thin layer over the entire bottom of our tube, and some of it will get up on the sides, and that's okay. Now we want to place our straws in, and there's no specific way that you need to do this. You can create a pattern if you want, or you can randomly place them in. I like to try and get them a little bit spread out between the thick straws and the thin straws. I think that looks good so far. And the glue doesn't dry immediately, so you do have time to kind of wiggle them around and adjust them if you want. Now, this is a house for mason bees specifically, and the reason that our house looks like this is because mason bees like to make their homes in holes. They can make it in holes between concrete and a lot of other materials. Oh, I like using the small straws. Let's switch to bigger straws. I'm kind of automatically making a pattern here. Hopefully they find it fun. I think this always ends up kind of looking a little bit like a flower. Scoot them around a little bit. I'm gonna put a couple ones, set it up right down there. See how they kind of lean over to the side? That's because the glue is still wet, and I prefer it like that because, like I said just a little bit ago, that means I can scoot them around before the glue completely dries. Now when you reach the last few straws, it might start being a little bit of a tight fit, but you should be able to squeeze them in there, and if you can't fit all of them in there, that's okay too. On my first one, for my last big straw, I definitely had to squish the sides in and squeeze it in there, like it looks like I'll have to do with this one. So I'll scoot it around a little bit, try and make a little bit more room, and then, yep. There we go. They're all snugly in there. We've got a bunch of holes ready for our mason bees to come live in. And then from the side. Once again, it's okay if some glue gets squished up onto the side. That just means that these straws are extra sturdy in there, and none of them will fall out. Now that our tubes are glued into the big plastic one, we want to leave it upright to dry for about a couple hours, just to be 100% sure that the glue is all the way dried. So we want to leave it sitting up like that. Making these little houses for bees is super helpful because a lack of habitat is one thing that is severely hurting the bee population. When we give bees a place to live like this, it really helps them out because it can increase the number of them living in that little area, and that can also attract new species to that same area. So by making just these little houses like this, which are super easy and full of holes for bees like the mason bee, we are very much helping the population of bees grow again. I hope you had lots of fun making your house. I hope that lots of bees come to visit it and you have fun watching them.